Well, joining us for a look at the day's market action is Robert Towell from Sasfin Securities. Thank you so much for your time, Rob. Red screens there, and particularly with the JSE, we saw that the financial 15 was actually the one that was hit the hardest in today's trading session. And I'm actually wondering if this is, just investors taking profits out of a long bull run, or are there actually some earnings momentum worries at this point coming from the banking industry?
I think firstly, the US markets are closed today, and we had a very thin day on the market. So I think we did about 11 billion in total, and the banks took easily over about 25% of that in the volume. So it was a thin day, not massive volumes across the board, but the banks definitely were sold. US earnings from their banks have been a little bit weaker than people expected, and maybe there's a follow through on that as the net interest income, starts to, taper off as interest rates type of have peaked. So people will be seen and wondering if banks are still going to continue, growing that that interest income in the banks. Locally, the banks are really well priced. They've had a very good run. Standard Bank, well over 200 rand. First Rand got up to about 75, and now given back quite a lot of that run. So they had a good run over the last 3 months. And maybe there is some profit taking. And obviously, South Africa under pressure as well in general in the economy. But we should see interest rates coming down. And I think that the banks are not overpriced in South Africa. And this sell-off in the banks in the short term possibly gives you an opportunity to re-enter them.
Yeah, I mean, Rob, you touched on the U.S. bank earnings that we saw. Of course, that kicked off on Friday, and missing analyst expectations over there. We saw banks like J.P. Morgan and Bank of America reporting lower profits for the fourth quarter. And I'm wondering if, because usually the banks, set the tone for what we can see in the rest of the earnings season. Do you think maybe that this could provide some sort of caution for investors on what else could come out of this earnings season in the US?
I think that there could be a slowdown over the quarter if you look at it for earnings going forward. But if you took some of the banks' earnings on a year-to-year basis, some of the banks' earnings were up over a year, but it was the quarter, and I think people are looking at that quarter to see when is the slowdown coming in the US economy, which is type of people have been waiting for, and it's been relatively firm. So I think that you will see slightly softer numbers going in this next earnings season, but they're not going to be negative numbers. That's going to be a slight slowdown, but it's not like companies are now starting to lose money, balance sheets are under massive pressure. So I think that there'll be slightly weaker earnings, but still a set of firm numbers, and the economy in the US is still relatively firm.
Rob, in Switzerland, the World Economic Forum is taking place. How much are the markets paying attention to this, and are there specific outcomes that markets will be focusing on?
Well, from our side, we're looking at what they have to say about AI and where AI is going, and does it need regulation, and how big the growth can come on from AI. So you've got a lot of billionaires there, a lot of the tech billionaires will be there. So that's something that we'd like to see come out of that. Where's their view on where AI is going, and how is it going to be regulated, and who are going to be the winners there? Other than that, I don't think they can have too much input on what's happening in the Middle East and in Russia. They haven't been able to do it before, and they're not a political organization in that front. So I don't think we're going to see anything come out of that. But I do think that the AI side would be quite interesting to see where they see it going in the next 10 years.
All right. Rob, let's bring it back home. And really, some company news that came out, I think it was the only company that came out with significant news today was Met-Air, with the changing of the guard there, saying that Paul O'Flaherty will be taking over from Stuart de Venga as CEO from the 1st of February. Of course, there has been quite a lot of change there in the leadership space at Met-Air, but also coupled with some earnings challenges there. Could this be a stamp of desired certainty from here on out for the business?
Well, Paul O'Flaherty, I think CEO of Group 5, and I think he went into ArcelorMittal as well. Very difficult companies that he had to try to fix. Both of them haven't done spectacularly well, so I think he's got a lot of experience, whether he can turn around Met-Air as well. Met-Air's got a really good batteries business, but they've had a lot of hyperinflation out of Turkey, and they've battled with managing that hyperinflation. But the assets are relatively good, and they could be, really grow from this era from where they've been. They also make, original equipment parts for motor cars, and I think you'd want to see them being able to produce car parts for electric vehicles, which in South Africa hasn't taken off yet. So I think they're stuck there to see if they're going to be able to get BMW, Ford, etc., to start manufacturing EVs in South Africa, or if they're not going to manufacture EVs, that they still keep those plants open so that they can keep those original parts, growing in that business. So I think he's got a lot to do, but there is a lot of potential in Met Air, and I think that people keep a close eye on that. If you do see a turnaround, it is something that you could invest in, but probably a bit early right now.
All right. Well, let's get to your stock pick for today, Rob. What will it be?
So I'm going back to First Rand. I think that, it was trading around 60, 65 Rand in June last year, and it's rallied all the way up to about 75 in December. And now we've seen a pullback. It's around 67 Rand. I think you can buy it at around 65. You're going to get about a 4.5% dividend yield and about a 10 to 11% jump in the share price. So total return of about 15% for the year. I think that's a relatively safe, good investment. So if you can get it around the 65 Rand level, I think it's a good asset. Will give you about 15% for the year.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time and just giving us insights on what has been driving market movements today. That was Robert Towell from Sasfin Securities.